What's up, guys? It's Scoopman 5000. Today we're back for another action figure review, and we're looking at some AEW this time, looking at the Blood Brothers, Dustin and Cody. This depicts their match from Double or Nothing 2019. That's probably my favorite AEW match thus far in AEW's lifespan. And for me, who's someone who didn't get the first round of pre-orders in for Series 2 of AEW, I'm going to be getting that series much later. This is going to be my first look at Dustin from that series, which is very exciting. Dustin and Cody, two of my absolute favorites. Ever since like 10 years ago when I started watching wrestling, I've always liked these two, always in my top 5, and very glad to see them have the success that they're having with AEW. And speaking of success, I'm also happy that the AEW line is in full force getting these exclusives with Ringside Collectibles, and like with the Bubbly, with that awesome packaging, it's not quite as grand or elaborate, but it's still very cool to get this bloody packaging. Really nice box set look. Definitely a set that I'll consider getting a second of just to keep in box just like this. On the front you can see Blood and Guts. Funny about that, that was actually the name of the canceled New Jersey event that was going to be in March. I was actually going to go to that show, but it obviously was canceled. Everyone knows why. So in a way, they're recycling the name of that show on this packaging. You can see you get similar branding on the top. On one side, you got more of this bloody window. AEW Unrivaled is down here. On the other side, you got Cody and you got Dustin. You can actually call him Cody Rhodes now, but obviously this was made before that. And then on the back, you could see the image of them from the event. Of any match so far that needs to be immortalized in a box set, I think this was the way to go. But enough about packaging and my personal experiences with AEW. We're going to go ahead, we're going to bust this package open, and let's take a look at Dustin and Cody. And we're going to kick things off with Cody. Now, for both of these figures, you get no accessories, which is disappointing. If you bring in the original Cody, the big glaring omission here is that sledgehammer. Now, obviously, that was only used in his entrance, but I'm kind of the idea that if it was with the original figure, you might as well just throw it in here. Maybe even a bloody sledgehammer, while not accurate to the match, would have been a cool accessory. But nonetheless, while we have this Cody here, you can see the big difference now going forward with these AEW figures. That was the big thing about the first ones. These almost transparent, glowing looking skin tones, completely fixed with this. Now if you go ahead and you bring in a Mattel Elite figure, you can see how much closer it is in quality in terms of the skin tone. But other than that, the construction of this figure is exactly the same, and the only new piece actually here is the head sculpt. And I think even that, 100% an upgrade from these original designs. I think that the AEW figures, I'm glad that they addressed their issues with Wave 1, kind of similar to what Jazzware did with their UFC figures, where they're completely redesigning them going forward. But since both of these figures come from Double or Nothing, this was obviously the entrance, this is post-match, but you can see the outfits are exactly the same. The weight belt, really, I guess you could call that an accessory. But we'll go ahead and we'll get the original Cody out of the way, and we'll take a closer look at this guy. And like I said, really awesome likeness to Cody Rhodes here, especially just look at the profile there. I think they really did a bang-up job here, and I'd love to see this reused. Maybe we could get like a suited Cody. I think I even mentioned that in my original Cody review, but I think there's definitely potential in this head sculpt for reuse. You can see his signature blonde hair caked in blood, very accurate to the match. As for the rest of the blood on him, I think it is a bit exaggerated. Like, I think I remember him doing the hand up here, but it did not look like this by the end of the match. But I will say, a bloody wrestling figure, not something you're ever going to get from Mattel, so really awesome. And not like they should always do things just to be different from WWE, but this is really cool. I really am a fan of this. But you can see, you got the handprint, you got these kind of splatters all over the place. And what I'm talking about exaggerated is that it wasn't like blood splatters. It's more like how it is on the hands and the knuckle. But you're not going to see dots like this really unless you're cutting some dude open with a chainsaw or something. But it still does look cool. I think for an action figure, this is definitely really awesome. And not something you're going to see a lot from really any action figure line. This is something that really could only be a AEW Ringside Exclusive. Never going to be something you're going to see sitting on a store shelf. You can see even his wrist tape here, completely soaked. It's actually still there. It's a darker color than his skin tone, but completely soaked up. You see the fingers. That's obviously where you're dealing blows. That's where most of the blood's going to land. But there even is a little bit of splash you could see on the trunks right here, a little bit on the leg, and then the white boots. Obviously, when you're kicking Dustin in the head, you're going to get these bloody marks all over the white boots. So that's really cool. On the back, you could see tons of blood dripping out over his back and a bunch of more little splatters here. But other than that, like I said, it is constructed the exact same way as that original Wave 1 figure. But I do think that it gives us an idea what those Wave 1 fixed up versions are going to look like. And also the figures coming in the later waves, obviously. But with Cody's aesthetic out of the way, we're going to go ahead and do some articulation. For the head, you got some double ball action going on here. There's a ball in the neck, and in the head, it looks like he's looking up that far, down that much, and he does get some tilt. It's a bit loose feeling. Definitely out of all the AEW figures I've had, this one feels the loosest. It's not that bad. It's still very usable, But in the torso here, it just feels a little bit too loose, like a bit too lubed up or something. And the head a little bit too. I just wish there was a bit more friction, but like I said, it's not even close to unusable, but it's just something I noticed. The torso is really a big area where they got Mattel beat. You got a ball here and a ball here. With that, he looks back pretty much all the way. Forward is pretty impressive, and you get crazy amounts of tilt. This is something you could compare to an Ultimate Edition, but even that, I think this beats it out. The shoulders swivel and they hinge. It's actually pretty clicky on the hinges for the shoulders. You get the upper bicep cut, and then the other game changer compared to Mattel's are these double jointed elbows, which go all the way, and then you got hinges and swivel at the wrist. You can see Cody splits out pretty much all the way. Still got this issue though. I'm glad I actually did this because this is ugly. This has to go. And even a little preview, you could see it on Dustin here. So that's an issue. I don't see why this is still here. You got to get rid of these. You got to get colored pegs inside of these legs here because that does not look right. With that, you got an upper thigh cut. Double jointed knee is pretty decent. You get the upper boot cut, and then you get a very impressive ankle rocker, and then you also do get a bit of a hinge. And with Cody out of the way, we're going to go ahead and do some comparison. And with that, we're going to bring in the Wave 1 Cody. Again, you could see the major differences in the skin tone and the head sculpt. And then another AEW member that I found laying on my desk is the Legends Jake the Snake Robber that we just took a look at. And then for your WWE Mattel basics, you got him here with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. And then for your elite figures, here he is with Seth and Roman respectively. And with Cody taken care of, let's go ahead and let's get to Dustin. And with Dustin, again, no accessories, but for me, this is my first look at Dustin's figure, and for a lot of you guys, I'm willing to bet, because it seems like this 2-pack is going to be a bit easier to get than actually the AEW waves themselves. But the one thing that I want to get out of the way right before we even get into the review is that this guy is massive, and all of the Wave 2 figures of AEW are completely massive in comparison to Wave 1. Now, I don't know how these kind of logistical things happen, but you could see him next to Cody here, and he's got about a head on Cody. Now, he is much taller than Cody, but it's probably more so around here, or more like Dustin should be just a little bit shorter. Because you go ahead and bring in Jake the Snake Roberts, who is very tall. This should probably be more like Dustin's height. I don't actually have a Goldust figure on hand, but Wave 1 AEW and WWE Elites did scale very well. So I'm a bit concerned in that aspect because it seems like these figures got a lot bigger, and that means they're not going to scale well with the other wrestling figures. But with that out of the way, we're going to look at the rest of the figure, and really this is excellent. I do love the construction of the AEW figures, and something I didn't mention with Cody, but I probably did in my other AEW reviews, is that these figures just feel good in your hand, and that's kind of a weird thing to say maybe, but they're just very solid, very well constructed. They don't feel cheap, and they probably even feel better than a Mattel figure, but again, maybe that's kind of a weird thing. But we're going to go ahead, we'll look at the head sculpts here. I'd imagine this is also a different head sculpt from Dustin's figure, but since I don't have that, I can't verify it. But this is almost an unrecognizable Dustin Rhodes, and that's pretty accurate because if you saw him in that match, the complete crimson mask that he had, on par with Stone Cold taking the sharpshooter, that image of Dustin's head, completely crimson mask, like I said. At this point in the match, it's kind of been rubbed all around, so you could still see a bit of his skin underneath, but the combination of his red face paint with the blood all over creates a really awesome effect and a really unique piece. Again, the bloody figures, you're never going to see this from another wrestling company. And you're never going to see it on a retail peg. Only something like a Ringside Exclusive. If I were to nitpick, I think the hair here, it's got really awesome like fading between the blood and the blonde hair. Here it's just kind of splatted on top. I wish it had some more of this fading effect. These look like completely different renditions of blood on someone's hair. But other than that, you just got to admire the level of detail in the face here with all that paint going on. I'd imagine they took some of the, original Dustin face paint and then they just kind of chopped it all around in Photoshop or whatever, added all these splatters all over. On the skin tone, it actually has a good fade effect, but when it gets to the hair, it just looks very solid. The hair kind of has no texture to it, and he is, mostly bald, but he does have a bit of hair, so I wish this had some texture. But that's probably my only complaint with the figure. I absolutely love the proportions of this guy. Again, just the scale is off, but let's say this was, just a figure on its own. The proportions here look exactly like Dustin, but you could see the kind of red Darth Maul-inspired look that he kind of went for with his AEW outfit. Luckily with him, he hasn't really changed up his look all that much, so this would be a pretty definitive Dustin. Well, at least the actual Wave 2 version and not the one covered in blood and gut. But in the event of Cody, this is very clearly Double or Nothing with that kind of Zelda-looking outfit. But he's had a bunch of outfits since, but with Dustin, he's kept it the same. But really awesome, you could see the blood splatter, and it's actually a slightly different red from his red, so it does kind of pop off a bit. And you also get blood splatter on the arms. On the back, you got the natural logo. Really cool about this figure too, it's the first time you see Goldust tattoos, because obviously while he was under the Goldust name, he wore the full body suit. In AEW kind of does this sleeveless look, so he's got the portrait here, he's got another heart up top, and then the whole sleeve over here, really badass looking. And overall, just a great look on Dustin Rhodes. And it's a great looking figure rendition of that outfit. For the articulation, this head is on a hinge. It's going to look up that far and forward that much. I wonder actually if that's going to be the same for all the AEW figures going forward. I don't have any of Wave 2, so I'm not sure. The torso, similar double ball. I thought it would actually be more limited, but it seems even better. So it goes back that far. Forward, maybe not so much, but the tilt is all over the place. You get the hinge and you get the swivel at the shoulder. You get the upper bicep cut. The double jointed elbow goes about that far. And then you get the hinge and swivel at the wrist. He's going to split that far. He's going to go back, not really much because of the trunks. Forward that much. You can see he's got the upper thigh cut. The double jointed knee goes that far. He's got the boot cut. And then he's got the ankle rocker and the hinge. And with Dustin taken care of, let's go ahead and do our comparison. So here he is with the Wave 1 Cody and the Cody that comes with him. And again, the height here, just very off. Dustin definitely should be just a little bit shorter, but it is what it is. And just to further that point, you can see him here with Jake the Snake Roberts, and then with Braun Strowman from the Elite line. And you can see he's actually a bit closer to Braun than he is to Jake. Definitely he should be more at this level, and definitely not be creeping up to Braun's height. And it's proven even more further when you put him up against your Mattel Basic Roman and Seth Rollins, and then finally with your Elite Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. And overall, that's going to do it for the Blood and Guts, Cody and Dustin Rhodes. And like I said, two of my absolute favorites ever since I started watching wrestling. So you know I'm going to be all over this 2-pack. It's my favorite AEW match and probably my 2 favorite AEW wrestlers. And definitely some guys I don't have enough figures of when it comes to their WWE tenure. So I'm always glad to add more. And especially with this AEW line being as impressive as it has been so far, I really don't have any complaints other than the obvious scale issue here. But with some creative posing, I guess you can get around that. And hopefully that's something they can get around, just so they can scale better with Mattel figures. And if not that, then maybe at least they can go back and make most of Wave 1, so that way they're a bit taller and go with the Wave 2 and plus figures. But nonetheless, that is going to do it. I'm going to be taking some figure photography of this, guys. And you can see all of my figure photography on Instagram, scoopman_5000. I recently reviewed WWE Elite Series 82. If you want to check that out, you can see it on the channel. And we have even more wrestling content coming out, so you don't want to miss that. But that is going to do it for today. So until next time, I'll see you guys in the next action figure review.